Reproduction in animals. Introduction. Do you remember the processes of digestion, circulation, and respiration? Now, these processes are essential for the survival of every individual. Reproduction is also essential for the continuation of a species. Imagine what would happen if organisms had not reproduced. There would be no one around. You will realize that reproduction is very important, as it ensures the continuation of similar kinds of individuals generation after generation. You have already learnt about reproduction in plants. In this chapter, we shall learn how reproduction takes place in animals. Modes of reproduction. Have you seen the young ones of different animals? You must have seen the young ones of various animals being born. Can you tell how chicks and caterpillars are born? How are kittens and puppies born? Do you think that these young ones looked the same before they were born as they do now? Well, let us find out. Just as in plants, there are two modes by which animals reproduce. These are sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction. You will remember that plants that reproduce sexually have male and female reproductive parts. That is, stamen and carpel. Well, in animals also, males and females have different reproductive parts or organs. Like plants, the reproductive parts in animals also produce gametes that fuse to form a zygote. It is the zygote which develops into a new individual. This type of reproduction, beginning from the fusion of male and female gametes, is called sexual reproduction. Male reproductive organs. The male reproductive organs include a testes, the singular form is testis, two sperm ducts, and a penis. The testis produces the male gametes called sperms. Millions of sperms are produced in the testes. Those sperms are very small in size. Each has a head, a middle piece, and a tail. Each sperm is a single cell with all the usual cell components. Female reproductive organs. The female reproductive organs are a pair of ovaries, oviducts or the fallopian tubes, and the uterus. The ovary produces female gametes called ova or the eggs. In human beings, a single matured egg is released into the oviduct by one of the ovaries every month. Uterus is the part where development of the baby takes place. Like the sperm, an egg is also a single cell. Fertilization. The first step in the process of reproduction is the fusion of a sperm and an ovum. When sperms come in contact with an egg, one of the sperms may fuse with the egg. Such fusion of the egg and the sperm is called fertilization. During fertilization, the nuclei of the sperm and the egg fuse to form a single nucleus. This results in the formation of a fertilized egg or zygote. The process of fertilization is the meeting of an egg cell from the mother and a sperm cell from the father. So, the new individual inherits some characteristics from the mother and some from the father. Fertilization, which takes place inside the female body, is called internal fertilization. Internal fertilization occurs in many animals, including humans, cows, dogs, and hens. Test tube babies. The term test tube babies is actually misleading because babies cannot grow in test tubes. In some women, oviducts are blocked. These women are unable to bear babies because sperms cannot reach the egg for fertilization. In such cases, doctors collect freshly released egg and sperms and keep them together for a few hours for IVF or in vitro fertilization. That is, fertilization outside the body. In case fertilization occurs, the zygote is allowed to develop for about a week and then it is placed in mother's uterus. Complete development takes place in the uterus and the baby is born like any other baby. Babies born through this technique are called test tube babies. External fertilization. You will be surprised to know that in many animals, fertilization takes place outside the body of the female. In these animals, fertilization takes place in water. During spring or rainy season, frogs and toads move to ponds and slow-ring streams. When the male and female come together in water, The female lays hundreds of eggs. Now, unlike a hen's egg, a frog's egg is not covered by a shell, and it is comparatively very delicate. A layer of jelly holds the eggs together and provides protection to the eggs. As the eggs are laid, the male deposits sperms over them. Each sperm swims randomly in water with the help of its long tail. The sperms come in contact with the eggs. This results in fertilization. This type of fertilization, in which the fusion of a male and a female gamete takes place outside the body of the female, is called external fertilization. It is very common in aquatic animals such as fish, starfish, etc. Development of embryo. Fertilization results in the formation of zygote, which begins to develop into an embryo. The zygote divides repeatedly to give rise to a ball of cells. The cells then begin to form groups that develop into different tissues and organs of the body. This developing structure is called an embryo. The embryo gets embedded in the wall of the uterus for further development. The embryo continues to develop in the uterus. It gradually develops body parts such as hands, legs, head, eyes, ears, etc. The stage of the embryo in which all the body parts can be identified is called a fetus. When the development of the fetus is complete, the mother gives birth to the baby. Internal fertilization in hens. Internal fertilization takes place in hens also. But do hens give birth to babies like human beings and cows? You know that they do not. Then how are chicks born? Let us find out. Soon after fertilization, the zygote divides repeatedly and travels down. As it travels down, many protective layers are formed around it. The hard shell that you see in a hen's egg is one such protective layer. After the hard shell is formed around the developing embryo, the hen finally lays the egg. The embryo takes about 3 weeks to develop into a chick. You must have seen the hen sitting proudly on the eggs to provide sufficient warmth, no? Did you know that development of the chick takes place inside the egg shell during this period? After the chick is completely developed, it bursts open the egg shell. In animals which undergo external fertilization, development of the embryo takes place outside the female body. The embryos continue to grow within their egg coverings. After the embryo develops, the eggs hatch. Viviparous and oviparous animals. We have learnt that some animals give birth to young ones, while some animals lay eggs which later develop into young ones. The animals which give birth to young ones are called viviparous animals. Those animals which lay eggs are called oviparous animals. The eggs of a few animals are easy to collect because their mothers lay them outside their bodies. These animals from whom you have collected the eggs are examples of oviparous animals. But you would not be able to collect the eggs of a dog, cow, or cat. This is because they do not lay eggs. The mother gives birth to the young ones. So these are examples of viviparous animals. Young ones to adults. The new individuals which are born or hatched from eggs continue to grow till they become adults. In some animals, the young ones may look very different from the adults. Recall the life cycle of the silkworm. The eggs turn to larva or caterpillar, which turns to pupa, and finally the adult. Frog is another such example. Observe the different stages of a frog starting from the egg to the adult stage. We find that there are 3 distinct stages, that is, egg, which turns into tadpole or larva, and finally the adult. Don't the tadpoles look so different from the adults? Can you imagine that these tadpoles would someday become frogs? Similarly, the caterpillar or the pupa of silkworm looks very different from the adult moth. The features that are present in the adult are not found in these young ones. Then what happens to the tadpoles or caterpillars thereafter? You must have seen a beautiful moth emerging out of the cocoon. In the case of tadpoles, they transform into adults capable of jumping and swimming. The transformation of the larva into an adult through drastic changes is called metamorphosis. What about the changes that we observe in our body as we grow? Do you think we too undergo metamorphosis? In human beings, body parts similar to those present in the adults are present from the time of birth. Asexual reproduction. Budding. So far, we have learnt about reproduction in some familiar animals. But what about very small animals like hydra and microscopic organisms like amoeba? Do you know how they reproduce? Let me tell you. In each hydra, there may be one or more bulges. These bulges are the developing new individuals and they are called buds. Recall the presence of buds in yeast. In hydra too, the new individuals develop as outgrowths from a single parent. This type of reproduction, in which only a single parent is involved, is called asexual reproduction. Since new individuals develop from the buds in hydra, this type of asexual reproduction is called budding. Binary fission. Another method of asexual reproduction is observed in the microscopic organism amoeba. Let us see how this happens. You have already learned about the structure of amoeba. You will recall that amoeba is a single-celled organism. It begins the process of reproduction by the division of its nucleus into two nuclei. This is followed by division of its body into two, each part receiving a nucleus. Finally, two amoebae are produced from one parent amoeba. This type of asexual reproduction, in which an animal reproduces by dividing into two individuals, is called binary fission. Story of Dolly, the clone. Cloning is a production of an exact copy of a cell or a complete organism. Cloning of an animal was successfully performed for the first time by Ian Wilmut and his colleagues at the Roslin Institute in Edinburgh, Scotland. They successfully cloned a sheep named Dolly. Dolly was born on 5th July 1996 and was the first mammal to be cloned. During the process of cloning Dolly, a cell was collected from the mammary gland of a female Finn Dorset sheep. Simultaneously, an egg was obtained from a Scottish blackface ewe. The nucleus was removed from the egg. Then, the nucleus was inserted into the egg of the Scottish blackface ewe, whose nucleus had been removed. The egg thus produced was implanted into the Scottish blackface ewe. Development of this egg followed normally, and finally Dolly was born. Though Dolly was given birth by the Scottish blackface ewe, it was found to be absolutely identical to the Finn Dorset sheep from which the nucleus was taken. Dolly did not show any character of the Scottish blackface ewe. Dolly was a healthy clone of the Finn Dorset sheep and produced several offsprings of her own through normal sexual means. Unfortunately, Dolly died on 14th February 2003 due to a certain lung disease. However, it is found that clones die before birth or die soon after birth. The cloned animals are many a times found to be born with severe abnormalities.